Slaughter Rice, and I'm the assistant to the dean in the graduate college, and I want to welcome you guys to the 3-minute research presentation training. We're so excited that you guys are interested in this event and want to learn more about how to better communicate about your research to a lay audience, an intelligent lay audience, and also the fact that you want to get your research and creative work out there in a larger context. And so I'm going to have our dean, Mary Beth Watwood, say a few words about 3MRP, and then we'll start in with the training.
Great. Thank you. This is a project that I inherited when I became dean almost exactly a year ago. And I really enjoyed it last year. I got a lot out of it. The notion for the 3-minute research presentation is this. There are so many opportunities in life as a scientist, as a scholar, as an artist, when it would greatly behoove you to be able to convince someone who's not in your field of the importance of your work. And the first term that I heard to describe this was elevator talk. Like you're in DC for a conference and you find yourself in an elevator with a congresswoman who has her hands on some purse strings, but she's not in your discipline. And she asks you, she sees your name tag and she turns to you and says, "Oh, I have one of your proposals on my desk. What is it that you do? What is this?" And you have, until the 10th floor to describe this. Another situation that I experienced personally was with my mother, who was ill, and when I was in her apartment, I saw that she had 11 different prescriptions from 3 different physicians, none of whom really spoke to each other about her. She was a tiny little bent-over lady who was very easily to just move along. And so when we went, I gathered them all up and put them in a Ziploc bag, and we went to her physician's office at each one of them. And I wouldn't leave because I'm not easy to dismiss. I'm a loudmouth, bigger person. And so I wouldn't leave until they actually talked to us about why she had these medications and if there were any interactions with the others. And they started in with this gobbledygook. And I'm not a physician, but I'm also not stupid. And same for my mom. And so we really struggled, but we would not leave until they could explain what was going on with her and why she needed these meds in terms that we could understand without the jargon. And we eventually got there. There were 3 physicians, and one of them was better than the other 2. But that's another arena where if you're dealing with patients or clients, you really need to be able to describe the technical aspects of what you're doing without jargon. So it's just an amazingly important skill. I was at a Dean's conference last spring, and this trend is really catching on. There are a lot of institutions across the country who are doing this now. And one of the colleagues there who has implemented this kind of program at her institution said that she gets pushback on doing this. But it's not so much from the students as sometimes from faculty who say our work is just so technical that we can't possibly describe it without jargon. And she said, and I agree, that that's just not true, that you absolutely can. And so that's where we want to help you guys. It's an important communication skill, and we want to help you get more proficient at being able to do this, more confident in public speaking in general. And for the people who rise to the very top, we want to acknowledge you and reward you monetarily. And this year, of course, we are also going to be working with U of A in a competition with them after our local. So there are more opportunities for recognition and for financial gain. And I'm so happy that you're here, and I really hope that you enjoy this as much as I have since I've been here. Thanks.
Thank you. So, how many of you have looked at the 3MRP website? Oh, good. How many of you have watched any of the 3MRP videos? Wow, okay. How many of you did the VB Learn modules, the first 2? 2. Just wondering, and then have all of you guys submitted your abstract? Yes. Oh, wonderful. Perfect. That's great to know. Okay, so as you know, 3-minute research presentation, you can talk about your thesis research, your dissertation research, your capstone research, or any creative work that you're doing either for your master's or doctoral program. And the importance of this is you're talking about the significance of your work or your research to an intelligent but non-specialist audience in just 3 minutes. And one thing that we've changed this year is we are allowing you to use 5 stationary slides instead of just 1. So you'll have 6 slides total, 5 slides, well, you can have up to 6 slides total. You'll need to have at least 1 with your title slide. And so Klein librarians are not here today, but we have cards for each of the research librarians, and they're grouped by college, and they're available to help you finish out your research, find any new research that might be related to what you're working on. They're also available to give you critique on your slides, on your presentation, and Klein Library is really our partner in this event, and they have been from the very beginning. Without them, I don't think we'd be able to do such a great job at this because they really do a lot of the legwork, especially with preparing the students. And the winners of the past 2 years worked very closely with their research librarian, and you can tell because they won. So I would encourage you to make contact with your research librarian and develop a plan on how to move forward with your research. And then, as I said, they're available to be that non-specialist audience that can provide you critique on your presentation slides as well as your actual presentation. And they enjoy doing this and want to do this, so they're available to help you out. The other thing that Klein Library offers are rooms like this, so you can check out this room. There are additional rooms where you can do recording while you present and then play it back immediately down the hall. You can also check out equipment. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I would just emphasize what you said, the research librarians love this event. So if you call them up or pop them an email or something, they will be responsive and they will want to help. And one thing that they are so great at is helping you with those slides and helping you if you struggle to be able to describe something, because it is really technical. They can help you do it. So please do take advantage of them because they want you to.
And they really do enjoy doing this event. Every year when we ask if, are you guys going to help us out with this event, they're like, oh yes, we would love to, because they really like learning more about what the students are doing, and their job is to help you. So please, I encourage you to reach out. And the last slide, as well as on our website, there's information on how to contact the research librarians. And so the value of 3MRP is that it develops your academic, presentation, and communication skills. You become more comfortable in discussing what you're doing and in terms that anyone can understand. It also gives, we're a little selfish with this, but it also allows us to showcase what our graduate students are doing here, the great research and creative work that you guys are doing that is then contributing to the scholarly activity at the university as a whole. And without students, the university wouldn't be here. So it's really a great opportunity for you to talk about what you're doing and to learn how to do that in a way that is effective, interesting, engaging, and that anybody can understand. And the first year we did it, we had 30 applications, and all but the College of Business. All colleges were represented except College of Business. This past year we had 65 abstract submissions, and every single college was represented. And so it really is available to all graduate students, and we encourage all graduate students to participate. And we also allow students who choose not to actually submit an abstract, but they just want the professional development and training, they're also invited to participate. And yesterday we had one student who was in her first year, but she wanted to learn more about 3MRP and how to be a better communicator about her research, and so she's going to go ahead and participate in all the training sessions. And all students are welcome to do that. And so you have a couple of handouts. This is eligibility. The only thing that I'm going to draw attention to, 2 things, is your presentation should be on your work related to your master's or doctoral program. If you work for someone outside of the university, we ask that you not present on that research, but that you're presenting on something directly related to your program's project, whether it's a thesis, dissertation, creative work. And then To participate, you have to attend at least two training sessions, so one in January, you guys are covered, and then one more in February, and then you'll need to attend at least one practice session, which those are towards the end of February, and then lastly, that you agree to be videotaped and to media exposure, because we do use your videos, as you saw. There are the YouTube videos, and then of course we take pictures, and we reserve the right to use your videos to promote the event as well as to train future students. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. The next thing we have are the rules, and so the only two things that have changed, and again you have a handout that details all of this, so I won't cover them all, is that you can have up to 6 PowerPoint slides, and one of those is your title, so you have 5. However, you do not have to use 5 slides. When we combined our event with U of A, they allowed 10 slides, and so our compromise was 5, because we're preparing you to present now as though you're going to that statewide competition, so you won't have to change your presentation between now and if you make it to the finals and you're one of our winners that we take down to the statewide competition. The next thing that we changed is that we are allowing electronic media, so you can use a video clip, a sound clip, but just remember that that clip should contribute to your presentation rather than detract from your presentation. And the judges are judging you on your actual presentation, not on that video clip. And so it really does need to be relevant to your research. At our November trainings, Dr. Watwood gave a perfect example. If you're doing research on birds and your video clip is of a pretty bird flying across the screen, that's not really contributing to your presentation. And so you have to really think about if it would contribute and how it will contribute. And if you do choose to use electronic media, I just ask that you talk to me so we can figure out the best way to do it, because we do need to coordinate with NAUTV when they film the finals so they can make sure that they cut to your video or audio clip. But those are both allowed, and again, there's a handout that outlines all of this, and please let me know if you have any questions about it.
Can I just jump in there?
Yes.
Now, you can certainly put a file, a video or an audio file in if you think that it contributes to your, and doesn't supplant, it supports but doesn't supplant your presentation. But my advice would be to look at that extremely judiciously, because you know, when you see technical problems come up that really throw someone, it's usually with something like that. I would think that an example of where you would want one is if you are doing some kind of linguistic analysis of speech patterns, and you really can make that point. It's a pivotal point that you need to make to your audience. Or some music, if you're a music student and you're doing some kind of musical expression thing, that would be, I think, where it would be appropriate for you to put something like that in. And we're hoping that that will help us get more people from the arts. So thanks.
Yes, that's what we're hoping for. So in your packet of handouts, you have 2 handouts about the judging criteria and then the actual scorecard. And if, for those of you who completed the modules in VB Learn, you use this to actually score presentations. And so the judges are looking at your communication style, your comprehension, and your engagement. And really one of the main points of these presentations is how are you engaging the audience in what you're doing so that they find it interesting, intellectually stimulating, and it makes them want to learn more. And so they're looking at the comprehension of your presentation, your intellectual impact, so you want to talk about your significance, and then they're also looking at how you're communicating with the audience. Is it with language that's suited to a non-specialist audience, or is it full of jargon? And we had one student yesterday who was talking about her research, and she used a jargon term, but then she immediately defined it. And so it's okay to use jargon as long as you define it and your presentation is not full of it. But what we're hoping that you gain from this is the ability to speak in a way that's not filled with jargon, and so you can communicate with people outside of your discipline. Because as Dr. Watwood said, you're going to have to talk to somebody about what you do and probably to get money to do it. And if you can't tell them about it in a way that they understand and they just glaze over, chances are you're not going to get that funding. So this is a great skill that you can use if you could choose to continue on in academia, or if you choose a different pathway and you're not becoming a professor. But in our jobs every day, we have to learn how to talk in a way that everybody can understand us. And so this is our first, did anybody go to the competitions last year? No, okay, so this is our first place winner from last year.
Our next presenter is Sean Mahoney, Beetles and Weevils, a new food source for birds. Advisor, Dr. Tad Timer.
Humans have the tendency to move plants from one area to another, and this often dramatically alters environments. In the Southwest, the invasive tree tamarisk, shown in the middle of the screen, was introduced in the mid-1900s and has since become wildly successful. Tamarisk is considered a pest plant that sucks up our water and degrades animal habitats along rivers that are already threatened by climate change and urbanization. But scientists argue that tamarisk can be suitable habitat, particularly for birds, which have been known to nest in tamarisk. Still, some want to remove tamarisk, but tamarisk grows in thick, dense patches and readily resprouts when cut, making tamarisk removal extremely difficult. So a new approach was found, and it came from tamarisk's original home in China. In 2001, the tamarisk leaf beetle, shown in the upper left corner of the screen, was released into the wild to do what it does best, eat the foliage of the tamarisk tree. Scientists caution that the tamarisk leaf beetle could negatively affect birds by removing critical habitat. But that was always met with the argument, why can't birds just eat the tamarisk leaf beetles? If that were true, that would mean that birds would benefit from the tamarisk leaf beetle because they would serve as a new food source. And so that opinion stood with no real evidence to back it up. So my collaborators and I set out to answer a simple question. Do birds eat tamarisk leaf beetles? And in order to do this, we had to be willing to get a little dirty. In the field, we caught 2 species of birds, shown in the lower corners of the screen, and collected their feces. We also sampled the insect community to understand what the birds could be eating. In the lab, we looked at the feces under a microscope and identified all the insect parts we could. And yes, that's as glamorous as it sounds. What we found was that although super abundant in the environment, the tamarisk leaf beetle only made up 10% of the birds' diets. So we concluded that the tamarisk leaf beetle was not an important food source for birds. But we also found something unexpected. We found that birds were eating a different insect that also fed on the foliage of tamarisk and was only described to be in the U.S. since 2011. The tamarisk weevil, shown in the upper right corner of your screen, was uncommon in our study area. But despite being uncommon, the tamarisk weevil made up 1/3 of the birds' diets. In a 2,000-calorie human diet, that's the equivalent of 3 Snickers bars. And because the tamarisk weevil was so uncommon in the environment, this suggests that birds really like to eat the tamarisk weevils. This is the first study to show that birds eat tamarisk weevils, and means that in areas where the tamarisk weevil occurs, habitat quality of an already fragile river environment could be increased for birds. Thank you.
So that is our first place winner from last year. And he worked extensively with the research librarians to prepare his presentation. And as you can see, he did a great job. For those of you who did the BB Learn modules where we had the different types of presentations, what did you think, what was the most common feedback you gave on the presentations that were not as good? Because there were presentations in there that were not as good. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't remember exactly which presentation it was, but something that I remember commenting on was that maybe in the introduction, the main point was given, but during the presentation, the content deviated a little bit. And it was hard to track on eventually what was the conclusion. And I think that was, yes, there were 3 minutes and that's a very short time, but it sort of deviated. And then some of the jargon that was used made it difficult to understand the main concept.
Great feedback. Anything else for the other person who finished the module? So Sean and I, and Mia, and Mary Beth and I, we have watched a lot of these videos, and there are some really, really great ones out there, and then there are some that could be really great.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we encourage practice, 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 and then practice some more. And just when you think you're done practicing, go ahead and practice some more. And you want to present to your colleagues, you want to present to your friends that are not in your degree program, and you want to present to the research librarians, because then you've got 3 different audiences giving you feedback. And then we're fortunate enough to also work with the theater department, so during those practice sessions, we'll have faculty from the theater department that will be able to provide feedback to you on your presentation, not just on the content, but about your stage presence, the delivery of your presentation. And so we'll also be working with faculty from the School of Communication. So it really is a collaborative effort. You have all these resources available to you, and I really encourage you to use them. Okay, so what not to do? Obviously, no costumes or props. While you can use multiple slides, we do not allow slide transitions. So your slide does need to be a static slide, much like this one. Avoid muttering ums, ahs, and ers. A lot of people use those to fill up space. And then you only have 3 minutes. That's not a very long time. Right now it seems like it's a lot. But when you only have 3 minutes, if you're using ums, or you're stuttering, or you're repeating what you're saying, that's just less time that you have for your actual presentation. I encourage you to engage with the audience. Don't look at the floor. Don't find that spot over in the corner where you're not looking at anybody, because you want to connect with the audience and draw them in. Avoid sex, religion, and politics unless it's related to what you're doing. Unless you're doing research on the current presidential election, I would encourage you not to talk about that in your presentation. Lastly, you want to avoid hands in the pockets, hands behind your back, across the chest, or presenting like Kirsten, where you talk constantly with your hands. I think Sean did a great job of using his gestures to punctuate what he was saying, rather than just Kirsten, who just talks all the time. So something to think about, and honestly, you're not really aware of it until you start photographing yourself. When I watched some of the first trainings that I did where we videotaped, I was like, wow, I did not realize I talked that much with my hands the whole time. And not just little gestures, but I was all over the place. So I encourage you to videotape yourself and then watch it back and see what you do. So presentation success. Keep it simple. Unexpected, tell us something interesting. So Sean, when he was presenting, he was bringing in little surprises all throughout. And so it was like, that's an interesting point. Keep it concrete. Concrete metaphor is great. You want to keep it credible. Emotional, if you have a link to human interest or a current issue or something that is really going to draw the audience in, I encourage you to use it. However, in the past, we've had questions from students about, do I have to have a human interest part to my presentation? We're like, no, that's just one of the things that you want to draw them in. And so it may not be a human interest element, but if you're showing that you've got passion for your work and passion about what it's going to do, that's how you make it emotional. And then lastly, tell a story. Have a beginning, a middle, an end. Hook them in, and then make them stay interested with what you have to say. Use your pauses. Maybe you sprinkle something in a little unexpected about a third of the way through. And then show that you've had some sort of change or transformation. You're all starting with your idea of what you wanted to do, what you actually did, what your results are, and how it's significant. So you've automatically got a change there. But you want to take them through that change and show them how you started with this, and this is what you ended up with. So to actually win the presentation, you've got to understand your target groups and understand the task. So you're talking to the non-specialist audience, but then you're also presenting to the judges. And the judges are looking that you're speaking clearly, you're communicating your ideas clearly, you have respect for the complexity of your research or creative work, but that you're able to explain it in a way that anyone could understand it. And then remember that presenting for 3MRP is very different than presenting at a conference. At a conference, you're presenting to your peers, so they already know the jargon. They probably already have an idea of what you're doing. Whereas with 3MRP, you've got undergraduate students, graduate students, you've got staff from the university, faculty from the university, administrators from the university, and then you've got people from the community. Who knows what their background is? So you've really got to think about, how can I talk about this in a way that anybody who's intelligent would be able to understand it? The other thing is when you go to a presentation for your discipline, you can put up those big tables. You can throw data at them, throw data at them, throw data at them. You have 5 slides, and if you've got table after table after of data that you're not able to explain or chart, that's not really supporting your presentation. So you really want to make sure that whatever you've got up on the screen is supporting your presentation. Lastly, I cannot stress practice, 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 practice in front of people, practice in front of the mirror, videotape yourself, watch it over. That's how you get better and better and better. Got less of those ums in your presentation. You're thinking more clearly about how you're moving from point A to B to C and to tie it up. And then you're also noticing any of the mannerisms that you have when you present. And then lastly, you want to think about your presentation style. You want to vary your voice, avoid those monotones. You can use pause, and then the preliminary heats will be in this room, but in the final presentations are in Ashurst Auditorium. And while you will be mic'd, it's still a large room, so you've got to project your voice, because we fill that auditorium to capacity with this event. And then you also want to have good eye contact, use your gestures, and then move intentionally. So don't wander across the stage, because if you pace, it makes your audience tired. And we will do a lot more of the presentation style in our February training, and then working with the theater department on your presentation. And so did anybody attend our first event in 2014?
No, but I've seen this video, that's how I heard about the event.
Yeah, have you guys all seen this video? No? Okay, then I'll go ahead and play it, because if you guys had all seen it, I didn't. Yeah, so this is the first year that we did it, and we were pleasantly ecstatic about how well it went and how great the presentations were.
Our very first presenter is Sarah Hoagland. Sarah is from the School of Forestry. Her major professor is Dr. Paul Beyer. The title of Sarah's presentation is Owls, Treatments, and Tribes. Sarah.
I recently traveled with a research group to 20 different forests across the nation that were managed by Native American tribes. Many of these tribes sustainably manage their forests using low-intensity prescribed burns and actively cut trees for a variety of purposes. What's interesting is that our research group found that Indian forest management practices are a great model for environmental sustainability. Unfortunately, though, today, many of our forests in the West are not healthy. We've suppressed wildfires, and now they're overgrown with trees, which increases the wildfire risk in many of our southwestern ponderosa pine and mixed conifer forests. The Mexican spotted owl, shown here, nests in those same exact forests and are currently listed as a threatened species due to the wildfire risk that they face. The only way to help save the Mexican spotted owl and reduce the wildfire risk is to remove some of these trees that are fueling these fires. But in the past 25 or so years, we've been so afraid to do this, partly because it could negatively impact the owl. It's a classic catch-22 dilemma. Owls need trees for their nest sites, but too many trees can cause disastrous wildfires. So how do we achieve that balance? Well, that's what brings us back to the tribes. My research looks at the effects of forest treatments on Mexican spotted owls. One of my study sites is shown here on the left. This is on the reservation, and it's thin. It has a much lower fire risk. Due to the tribe's sovereignty, they can be much more proactive and experimental in their management. The tribe has been collecting forest and owl data for decades and has shared it with me. My other study site is shown here on the right. And no, this image is not Photoshop. This site on the right, for the most part, is unthinned and has a much higher fire risk. This is a dangerous situation not only for the owl, but for forest communities such as Flagstaff. So, which sites do you think the owls prefer? Well, it turns out thinning doesn't scare them off, and in fact, it could be beneficial. We believe that this thinning allows the understory grasses to grow, which is a food source for the rodents that owls eat. By analyzing satellite images, we're able to identify what forest types owls prefer as a nest site. Using the data we've collected, we'll be able to identify, protect, and actively manage areas throughout the Southwest that may provide suitable owl habitat. Future work will compare occupancy and reproduction rates between thinned and unthinned sites to see exactly how owls respond. Our work will identify to what extent we can reduce wildfire risk without negatively impacting the owl. As tribal elders have told me many times in the past, it's our responsibility to take care of the forest and all the creatures within. This work will allow us to do just that. Thank you very much.
All right, so why did she win?
I think mainly because she proposed this dilemma in her field of research, like this catch-22 dilemma, and then solves it for the audience. You know, because you're like, oh, how are we going to solve this? Boom, she solves it. She's the hero kind of situation.
Great. Any other comments?
I liked how she brought it back, like it was like a full circle idea. In the beginning, she talks about owls and the burning and the cultural importance of it, and then again discusses it at the end. And I think it was a really good full circle in that way.
She drew you in, so she
Yes.
hooked you.
Mm-hmm.
She told the story, which had animals, human interest. She's working with the tribes. And then it also helps that it's right around Flagstaff, because we all can, maybe since you guys, are any of you from Flagstaff, or did you all come here for graduate school? Came here.
Just came-
So for those of us who've been here for a while, we remember the fire that happened, the Schultz fire. And so it is a very real thing here in Flagstaff with forest fires. And so you can then personally connect with that. And so she's got all of those elements, and that's why she won. And that's what the winners have that set them apart, is they bring so many different elements in, and they do it in a way that it's seamless, well practiced, and then they deliver it. As you noticed, her gestures were timed. She had different intonation and inflection in her voice, and she really drew you in with what you were going to say. She used her pauses well. So that's why I encourage you to watch all those different videos, good ones as well as bad ones, or not so great ones, because it allows you to look and see, okay, that works, but this doesn't work. Like, how would that person improve their presentation? And that will help you improve yours. Yes?
One thing that I wanted to mention after looking at both of those videos again is, I don't know if y'all noticed it, but both of them had a point where I believe he sort of cleared his throat, or sort of, he had a hesitancy, and she had one actually when she was early on, when she was first looking at her slide. It was almost like she had a little brain blip and then got it back. And so the reason I point that out is because neither one of those was perfect, right? But they still won. So it's not like you have to be afraid that you're going to have a brain blip or have to clear your throat or something like that. That is not the knell of death in this competition. It's just basically getting back, staying on, and as Kirsten said, that really comes with practice.
And the one thing about this is the audience wants you to succeed. They're there to support you. They're there to learn about what you're doing. That's why they're there. They're just so excited that you're doing this, and every presenter that they have, they're like, yeah, yeah, because they're rooting for you. And so that's something that you have to remember, is this whole room is here to support me and to encourage me and to root for me. Because we are all here to help you out along the way, and then we're all there to cheer you on at the end. Okay, so the slides. So I chose this picture because we're here to help you out. The graduate college staff is here to help you out with your slides, with your presentation. The library is here to help you out. You've also got your colleagues and your friends. Everybody's here to support you, so you're not in it alone. So with reference to your slides, less is more. I have one picture on my slide. And hopefully I didn't offend anybody by using the newer movies rather than the older movies. But there's one image or diagram can say a lot, and so you really want to choose what's going to contribute to your presentation. You know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's very true. So just think about what really embodies what you're doing, and then use it on your slides. Personal touches can be very effective. I'm trying to think of one that I've seen where they've had a personal touch to their.
Well, the one with the foot thing, and you know, they really tied that into, it was a presentation on this anomaly of flat-footedness, and their metaphor was comparing it to part of the functioning sail on a sailboat, the way the physiology worked. But then they also talked about how, you know, this is a really painful condition for patients, and to be able to better understand this so that treatments can be improved would really improve the quality of life for people. So that was definitely a personal hook.
And then with reference to your title, because you do have a title slide, the title can be the title of your thesis or your dissertation or capstone project, but it doesn't have to be. And oftentimes, I personally find them more interesting when they're not. Because I don't remember my whole title for my thesis, but it was something about comparing the cliff dwellings south of the Mogollon Rim to those in Mesa Verde, Kaibab Plateau, and it was this very, very long title, and that is not terribly interesting. But some of the greatest ones are short. A lot of them ask questions, and rhetorical questions are great, both in your title as well as in your presentation. And then lastly, I can't stress it enough, if you use media that's not going to detract from your presentation. Any questions?
Again, I would urge you to consider using fewer than 5 slides. I mean, seriously, you have 3 minutes. And when we first started talking with our colleagues at U of A about having a state event after our local, I could not believe that they allowed up to 10 slides because that just sounds too busy to me.
And is it still 3 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, that just seems like it would just be distracting to change slides that much. And 5 still sounds like a lot to me. But you can use that many. I just don't want you to think that my presentation is not going to be as good if I have 2 or 3 instead of 5. Because no, that's not going to be the case at all. And in some cases, I think it might be stronger and not distracting from what you're saying. Not to be constantly having to click through the slides.
Yes. And we've done it with 2 years with just 1 slide. And it's been very, very effective.
I had a clarification.
Yes.
In one of the things with the 5 slides, it says no transitions or animation. Do we still have control of when we change the slide though?
Yes, and
That's
so
still
what that
considered
means is you're
transition.
not going to have a slide where halfway through you've got something flying in from this corner.
Oh, so not having 5 slides with like 3 inside it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you will have a clicker to transition between your slides, but it has to be that the slide comes up and that's all that it is.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know, in PowerPoint, sometimes you can flip them in or fade them out, and none of that.
Yeah. No,
None
it's
of
just
that.
straight one to the next. So you're not going to have your text shooting in. Or,
It's the best. The cheesy
I have
cue.
been to presentations where it looked like they spent longer on their animations than they did on the content of the slides.
and it can be very distracting, and you don't want to distract from your presentation.
Well, and I'm going to say one more thing, and then I actually have to leave for another appointment. But I went to a presentation that one of my colleagues, who will remain unnamed, on campus gave, and she was going through these slides, and they were, you know, starring in and blipping out and flipping around, and she herself was standing up there saying, "Oh, wow." It was so hilarious, you know. I don't even remember what she was actually talking about, but she had gone over the top with the animations, and she herself was impressed.
So none of that, okay?
None of that.
All right, so you have a Word document, the stapled one, second to last. that is a more detailed outline, timeline of what you should be doing when. So the things that I want to draw your attention to, you guys have already hit this first training session, so you're good. The second training sessions, we'll offer a few between February 8th and 12th, and you'll need to attend one of those. It'll be in this room. And then the practice sessions are the 22nd through the 26th. And again, those will probably be in this room, and you'll need to schedule a time to meet with one of the faculty members. The preliminary heats are scheduled for the week before spring break, and then I won't do it on Friday, so I'll be able to notify everybody on Friday whether or not they've made it to the finals. And depending on how many students we end up with, because people can still submit their abstracts through this Monday, that will determine how many preliminary heats we have. The final presentations will be the afternoon of March 29th. And then for those advancing to the statewide competition, it'll be on Saturday, April 16th down at the Phoenix Biomedical Campus, and we will provide transportation to and from that event. The thing that I forgot to put on here is your slides will be due to me on March 1st, and that's so I can take a look at them, give you some feedback, and then also because I group them together for the preliminary heats. And then for those of you who advance to the finals, you'll be able to edit your slides, but then we will ask for them beforehand so we can again merge it into one PowerPoint for the whole presentation. And then same thing with those advancing to the statewide competition. You will have the opportunity to change up your slides. Any questions about the timeline? So a lot of it is meet with your research librarian, practice. Practice some more, work on your slides, practice, practice, practice. So the one word you should take away from this is practice. Okay, and then the last sheet, and all of this stuff is available in the BB Learn course shell, and most of it's available on our website. So the last thing is your additional resources. So don't worry about these hyperlinks. These are all available on the website. These are all the links to use Klein Library. Here's some examples of the 3-minute thesis presentations that you can take a look at. You can also visit our YouTube channel and take a look at our presentations. And then, as Dr. Watwood said, more and more universities are doing this. So if you Google 3-minute presentations or 3MT, you're going to find a lot out there. We have some resources for helpful hints and tips, not just for presenting, but for presenting in 3 minutes. And I really encourage you to take a look at the Making the Most of Your 3 Minutes. This is a great, great document. And all of these are available on our website as well as in the BB Learn course shell. And if you have any questions, shoot us an email. Both Sean and I, Sean Milam is our GA, and our other GA is Mia Rainiel, and we all monitor that email address. So if you have questions, let us know. We're here to help. So what we're going to do, if you'll see on your agenda, I've got presentations. So we are going to ask you to take a few minutes, and then you're going to come up and tell us about your research or creative work in 3 minutes. Nobody knew that they were supposed to